I raised my son Michael as a single dad since he was 5. His mom walked out on us without a word, and suddenly I was everything to him: provider, comforter, teacher. We struggled financially. I worked as a mechanic during the day and cleaned offices at night. Sometimes I skipped meals so he could eat. Despite all this, watching him graduate college made it all worthwhile. Now he was getting married to Sophie, from a wealthy family who never hid their disapproval of me. I arrived at their country club venue feeling proud but nervous. If you've ever felt judged for who you are rather than what you've done, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button. My story might just give you the courage you need. I never finished high school. That fact has followed me like a shadow my entire adult life. But when I became a father at 22, I knew I had to make something of myself, even without a diploma. Michael was born during my brief marriage to Lisa. We were young in love and completely unprepared for parenthood. When Michael turned 5, Lisa decided family life was not for her. I came home from work one day to find a note on the kitchen table and her clothes gone from the closet. Michael was sitting alone watching cartoons, unaware that his mother had just walked out of his life forever. "Where is Mommy?" he asked, looking up at me with those innocent eyes. I swallowed hard. "She had to go away for a while, buddy." That night, after tucking Michael in, I sat at our small kitchen table and cried for the last time. From that moment forward, I made a promise that my tears would never hold us back. I had a son to raise. Life as a single father was not easy. Without a high school education, my options were limited. I worked as a mechanic at a local garage during the day. The owner, Frank, was understanding about my situation and allowed me flexibility when Michael needed me. But a mechanic's salary was not enough to support us, so I took a second job cleaning offices at night. On weekends, I would pick up odd repair jobs for extra cash. Despite the exhaustion, helping Michael with his homework was non-negotiable. I would sit with him every evening, even though some of his assignments challenged my limited education. "Dad, can you help me with this math problem?" Michael would ask. Sometimes I did not know the answers, but I never admitted it. Instead, we figured it out together, with me secretly reading his textbooks after he went to bed so I could stay one step ahead. As Michael progressed through school, his academic abilities quickly surpassed mine. He had an incredible mind for science and mathematics. By the time he reached high school, he was taking advanced placement classes and talking about concepts I could barely pronounce. I will never forget the day his acceptance letter from Cornell University arrived. Michael had applied for a full scholarship knowing we could never afford the tuition. When he opened the envelope and saw he had been accepted with a full ride, we both burst into tears. "We did it, Dad," he said, hugging me tight. "We really did it." It was during his junior year at Cornell that Michael met Sophie. She was studying business, came from a wealthy family in Connecticut, and according to Michael, was the smartest person in all his classes. When he first mentioned her, his voice changed, and I knew my son was falling in love. Michael brought Sophie home during spring break. She was polite and charming with impeccable manners that spoke of her privileged upbringing. I could see she genuinely cared for my son, but there was a subtle distance she kept from me, as though unsure how to relate to someone so different from her own family. A few months later, I was invited to meet Sophie's parents, Thomas and Elaine Harrison. Their home was a sprawling estate with a circular driveway and a fountain. I parked my 15-year-old pickup truck behind their matching luxury cars and straightened my tie before knocking on their massive front door. The dinner was tense from the start. Thomas Harrison was a successful investment banker who had graduated from Yale. His wife, Elaine, served on the boards of several charities and had a PhD in art history. Their conversation was peppered with references to people, places, and events that highlighted the gap in our worlds. "So, Juan, where did you attend university?" Thomas asked over appetizers. "I actually did not have that opportunity," I replied honestly. "I started working right out of high school." Thomas nodded with a tight smile. "I see. And what line of work are you in?" I am a mechanic. I specialize in European imports now. A mechanic, he repeated, exchanging a glance with his wife. How? Hands-on. Michael quickly jumped in. Dad is the best mechanic in the state. The owner of his shop trusts him with all their high-end clients. I squeezed Michael's shoulder. It is okay, son. I am proud of what I do. That evening continued with more subtle digs at my education and profession. Though they never said anything outright offensive, their condescension was clear. Michael was tense throughout dinner, ready to defend me at every turn. I kept telling him with my eyes to let it go. This was about him and Sophie, not about me. On the drive home, Michael apologized repeatedly for their behavior. You have nothing to apologize for, I assured him. Not everyone values the same things in life. They had no right to judge you, he insisted. They know nothing about what you have sacrificed. I smiled at my son, so fierce in his defense of me. Their opinion of me does not change who I am or what we have accomplished together. Remember that. 6 months later, Michael called to tell me he had proposed to Sophie and she had said yes. My joy for him was immediate, but it came with a current of anxiety. A wedding would mean more interactions with the Harrisons and their world. As expected, Thomas and Elaine took control of the wedding planning from the start. They had connections with the most exclusive venues and vendors in the area. Sophie was their only daughter, and they wanted the event to reflect their social standing. I called Thomas directly to offer my contribution. I have been saving for Michael's wedding since he was little, I told him. I want to help with the expenses. That is very thoughtful, Juan, but we have got it covered, Thomas replied dismissively. This is going to be quite an elaborate affair, and we would not want to burden you. His words stung, but I kept my voice steady. I understand it will be expensive. I just want to do my part. The best thing you can do is show up on time in a proper suit, he said, with a chuckle that felt like sandpaper on my dignity. After that call, I picked up extra shifts at the garage and started doing repair jobs on Sundays. 3 months of this schedule allowed me to buy a suit that would not embarrass my son. It cost more than 3 months of rent, but seeing Michael's face when I tried it on for him made it worthwhile. You look sharp, Dad, he said, adjusting my tie. Sophie's dad might have money, but you have style. I laughed, grateful for his unwavering support. As long as I do not embarrass you, that is all that matters. His smile faded. You could never embarrass me. You are the reason I am who I am today. Those words carried me through the months of wedding preparations during which I was largely excluded. The Harrisons sent me formal updates and invitations, as they would any other guest, but never sought my input or involvement beyond what protocol demanded. I told myself it did not matter. The important thing was Michael's happiness, and he was marrying the woman he loved. Everything else was secondary. The wedding day arrived bright and clear. The ceremony and reception were being held at the Harrisons Country Club, a sprawling property with manicured lawns and a view of the Connecticut coastline. I arrived early, wanting to have a moment with Michael before everything began. The venue was even more impressive up close. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, fresh flower arrangements stood taller than me, and staff in formal attire attended to every detail. I felt distinctly out of place, despite my new suit and carefully polished shoes. I found Michael in a room set aside for the groom's party. When he saw me, his face lit up, and he embraced me tightly. "Dad, you made it," he said, as though there had been any doubt. "I would not miss this day for anything in the world," I replied, straightening his boutonniere. "You look so handsome. Your mother would be proud." It was rare that we mentioned Lisa, but today it felt right to acknowledge that part of his life even briefly. Michael's eyes grew serious. "Thank you for everything, Dad, for working so hard, for never giving up, for showing me what it means to be a man of character. I would not be standing here today without you." His words filled my heart. In that moment, all the late nights, the exhaustion, the sacrifices felt insignificant compared to the man my son had become. As guests began arriving, I was directed to my seat for the ceremony. I noticed I was several rows back, not in the front, where parents of the couple typically Saturday. I said nothing, not wanting to cause any disruption. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Sophie looked radiant, walking down the aisle on her father's arm. The pride on Thomas's face reminded me that, despite our differences, we shared a love for our children. When Michael and Sophie exchanged vows, I felt tears running down my cheeks. My little boy, who once needed me to tie his shoes and check for monsters under his bed, was now a married man. Nothing could diminish the joy of that moment. After the ceremony, guests moved to the reception area. I followed the crowd into an elegantly decorated ballroom. Table assignments were displayed on a large, ornate board. I found my name listed at table 19, far from the wedding party's table at the center of the room. When I located my table in a corner near the kitchen entrance, I noticed something strange about my place setting. While other nameplates simply displayed guests' names in elegant calligraphy, mine read, Juan Garcia, low-educated fake dad. I stared at it, certain I must be misreading. I picked it up, turned it over in my hands, but the words remained unchanged. A cold feeling spread through my chest as I realized this was no mistake. From a nearby table, I heard laughter. Two young men who I recognized as Sophie's cousins from family photos Michael had shown me were looking in my direction. Uncle Thomas thought it would be hilarious, one said to the other, not bothering to lower his voice. The mechanic thinks he deserves credit just for not abandoning his kid. I carefully placed the nameplate face down and sat in my assigned seat. My hands were trembling, but I forced myself to appear calm. This day was about Michael and Sophie. I would not allow anything to detract from their happiness, especially not my wounded pride. The reception began with introductions of the wedding party. I watched as Michael and Sophie entered, to applause, both glowing with happiness. They shared their first dance, and Thomas gave a lengthy toast, highlighting his daughter's accomplishments and welcoming Michael to their family. No mention was made of me or my role in raising the groom. When dinner was served, I quietly replaced the offensive nameplate with a blank card on which I wrote only my name. I hoped the matter would end there, allowing me to endure the remainder of the evening with my dignity intact. But as the main course was being cleared, Thomas Harrison approached my table, a glass of scotch in his hand and a smirk on his face. "Juan, enjoying yourself?" he asked, placing a hand on my shoulder. "I see you found your place all right. Did you see the little joke on your nameplate? Just a bit of fun between family, right?" I looked up at him, maintaining a neutral expression. "I saw it. No offense intended, of course," he continued, though his eyes said otherwise. "We are just such a formal bunch, always listing degrees and titles. I thought we would acknowledge your unique contribution." "My contribution was raising Michael," I replied evenly. "That is title enough for me." Thomas's smile faltered slightly. "Yes, well, you did what you could with your limitations. Fortunately, he had Sophie's influence these past few years to polish him up a bit. Amazing what proper guidance can do." Before I could respond, Elaine joined us, her smile as artificial as the flowers on the wedding cake. "Juan, that suit is quite nice," she said. "Much more appropriate than what you wore to the rehearsal dinner. Someone must have helped you shop." "Actually, I chose it myself," I said. "Working with luxury vehicles has given me an eye for quality." "How quaint," she replied, picking up fashion tips while changing oil. I noticed several guests at nearby tables glancing uncomfortably in our direction. They could sense the tension, but no one intervened. "If you will excuse me," I said, standing up, "I need to use the restroom." I walked away with measured steps, waiting until I was alone in the restroom before letting my composure slip. I gripped the edge of the sink, breathing deeply, to calm the storm of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. Part of me wanted to leave to escape the humiliation and thinly veiled contempt, but I could not do that to Michael. This was his wedding day, and I would endure anything for him. After splashing cold water on my face, I straightened my tie and returned to the reception. I had barely taken my seat when I saw Michael making his way through the crowd, concern evident on his face. "Dad, there you are," he said. "I have been looking for you. Why are you sitting all the way over here?" "This is where I was assigned," I replied with a shrug. "It is fine, son. The food is excellent." Michael frowned, noticing my subdued demeanor. "What is wrong?" "And do not say nothing I know when something is bothering you. It is your wedding day," I insisted. "Let us focus on celebrating." "Dad," he said firmly, "tell me what happened." I hesitated, still reluctant to create any drama on this important day. But Michael's determined expression told me he would not let this go. Slowly, I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the original nameplate I had kept as evidence. "This was at my place setting. When I arrived," I said quietly, handing it to him. Michael read the words, his face transforming from confusion to disbelief to anger in the span of seconds. His hands began to shake, much as mine had earlier, but for an entirely different reason. "Who did this?" he demanded, his voice louder than I had ever heard it in public. "Michael, please." I tried to calm him. "It does not matter. Let us just enjoy the rest of the evening." But my son was already scanning the room, his eyes locking on Thomas Harrison, who was chatting amiably with some business associates near the bar. Before I could stop him, Michael was striding across the ballroom, the nameplate clutched tightly in his hand. "Michael, wait." I called after him, but it was too late. The reception was in full swing with music playing and guests mingling. But as Michael approached his new father-in-law, the confrontation drew immediate attention. I hurried after him, hoping to prevent a scene, but I was too late. "What is this?" Michael demanded, holding the nameplate in front of Thomas's face. "Did you do this to my father?" The music seemed to dim, though it was likely just my perception as more and more guests turned to watch the unfolding drama. Thomas Harrison glanced around nervously before forcing a laugh. "Come on, Michael. It was just a bit of harmless fun. No need to make a scene." "Harmless fun," Michael repeated, incredulously. "You thought it was funny to humiliate the man who raised me, the man who sacrificed everything for me." Thomas lowered his voice. "Let us discuss this privately, son." "I am not your son." Michael shot back, his voice carrying across the now silent room. "And we will discuss it right here, since you had no problem publicly disrespecting my father." I reached Michael's side, placing a restraining hand on his arm. "Michael, this is not necessary." "It is absolutely necessary," Dad Michael insisted, never taking his eyes off Thomas. "These people need to know who you really are." He turned to address the room at large, still holding the offensive nameplate. "My father never finished high school, that is true. He had to drop out to support his family when his own father got sick. But he is far from uneducated." Michael's voice grew stronger with each word. "This man worked 3 jobs to keep a roof over our heads after my mother abandoned us. He was a mechanic during the day, a janitor at night, and picked up odd jobs on weekends. There were nights he did not sleep more than 4 hours, days he skipped meals so I could eat." The crowd was completely silent now, all attention focused on Michael and his impassioned defense. Despite working 60-hour weeks, he never missed a parent-teacher conference. He helped me with homework every night, even though some subjects were challenging for him. He would stay up after I went to bed, reading my textbooks, so he could help me the next day. I felt a lump forming in my throat as Michael continued. "What none of you know, including you," Thomas, Michael said, pointing accusingly, "is that while I was in college, my father was taking night classes to earn his GED. He did not tell me because he did not want me to worry about him while I was focusing on my studies." This revelation caused a murmur through the crowd. Even I was surprised that Michael knew about my classes. I had been so careful to keep them a secret. "So, you tell me," Michael challenged Thomas, "who is more educated, the man with the Yale degree, who judges others based on their titles, or the man who taught himself advanced mathematics from library books so he could help his son pursue his dreams?" The silence in the room was deafening. I noticed Sophie standing nearby, her hand over her mouth, tears in her eyes. For a moment I feared this confrontation would damage her relationship with Michael, that their marriage was off to a terrible start. Then she moved, coming to stand beside her new husband. "Michael is right," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Juan, I am so sorry for how my family has treated you. It is inexcusable." Thomas Harrison looked uncomfortable, his usual confidence shaken by the public rebuke. Now, let us not blow this out of proportion. It was just a silly joke." "A joke is only funny if everyone laughs," Michael replied coldly. "No one is laughing now." He turned to me, his expression softening. "Dad, if they cannot respect you, the man who made me everything I am, then let us leave. This is not the family I want to be part of." The ultimatum hung in the air. Guests exchanged shocked glances, and I heard whispers of support for our position. Thomas Harrison looked around, realizing the room had turned against him. His wife Elaine had appeared at his side, her face flushed with embarrassment. To my surprise, it was Elaine who spoke next, addressing her husband in a tight, controlled voice. "Thomas, this is inexcusable. Apologize to Juan immediately." Thomas adjusted his tie, clearly uncomfortable. "Look, Juan, perhaps I went too far with the nameplate. I apologize if you were offended." "If I was offended," I repeated, finding my voice at last. "Your words and actions were deliberately hurtful. But I did not come here today for your respect or approval. I came to celebrate my son's happiness. That is all that matters to me." Michael shook his head. "Not good enough, Thomas. My father deserves a real apology." Thomas Harrison was not accustomed to being challenged, especially not in front of his social peers. He looked around the room, seeing the disapproval on faces of people whose opinions actually mattered to him. Finally, his shoulders slumped slightly. "Juan, the first sincerely apologized for my behavior," he said, and this time there seemed to be genuine remorse in his voice. "It was inappropriate and disrespectful. You have raised an exceptional young man, and that speaks volumes about your character." I studied his face for a moment before nodding. "Apology accepted. For Michael and Sophie's sake, let us move forward." Michael was not entirely satisfied, but seemed to recognize the importance of reconciliation on this day. He took control of the situation with the confidence I had always tried to instill in him. "Good. Now we are going to fix the seating arrangement," he announced. "My father will be seated at the main table where he belongs." As staff hurried to rearrange the head table, I noticed a shift in the atmosphere. The tension began to dissolve, replaced by a new energy. Several guests approached me with genuine interest, no longer seeing me through the lens of Thomas Harrison's prejudice. The remainder of the reception transformed into something I never expected. With the truth laid bare, people began to see me as I was not as the caricature Thomas had created. A distinguished gentleman approached me as I sipped a glass of water at my new seat at the head table. He introduced himself as James Townsend, CEO of a major automotive company. "Michael tells me you have quite the talent with European engines," he said. "We are always looking for master mechanics with your level of experience for our custom restoration division." I was surprised by his interest. I have been working with imports for almost 20 years now. It is a passion of mine. "I can tell," he replied, handing me his business card. "We offer excellent benefits and significantly better pay than most independent shops. Give me a call next week if you are interested." As he walked away, I stared at the card in disbelief. This unexpected opportunity had emerged from one of the most difficult moments of my life. Later, during an impromptu dance set, Sophie approached and asked if I would dance with her. As we moved awkwardly to the music, she squeezed my hand. "Juan, I want you to know that I never saw you the way my parents did," she said softly. "Michael talks about you with such admiration. I hope you can forgive my family and still welcome me as your daughter-in-law." "There is nothing to forgive as far as you are concerned," I assured her. "You make my son happy, and that makes you family." She smiled through tears. "Thank you. And just so you know, I have been taking Michael to task for not telling me about your GED classes. We could have helped. Some journeys we need to make on our own," I replied. "It means more that way." After our dance, Michael announced that they were adding a special father-son dance to the program. As we stood together on the dance floor, neither of us particularly graceful, he looked at me with the same trusting eyes he had as a child. "Thank you for everything, Dad," he said simply. "I am the one who should be thanking you," I replied. "Your defense of me today was something I will never forget." "I only told the truth," he shrugged. It was time they knew it. Throughout the evening, I noticed Thomas Harrison watching us. His usual confident demeanor had been replaced by something more thoughtful. Near the end of the night, he approached me while I was alone. "I misjudged you, Juan," he said, the words clearly difficult for him. "I looked at your lack of formal education and made assumptions about your character and intelligence. I was wrong. We all make judgments based on our own values," I replied. "Your world values credentials and status. Mine values hard work and sacrifice. Neither is entirely right or wrong, just different." He nodded slowly. "Michael is lucky to have had your influence. I can see now why he turned out to be the kind of man my daughter fell in love with. It was not a profound moment of transformation, but it was a start." As Thomas walked away, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders that I had not even realized I was carrying. The approval of Sophie's family had never been my goal, but there was a certain peace in this small reconciliation. 6 months after the wedding, my life had changed in ways I never anticipated. I accepted the job offer from James Townsend, which came with better hours and nearly double my previous salary. Michael and Sophie bought a house halfway between my apartment and her parents' home, a physical representation of the new balance in our extended family. My relationship with the Harrisons improved gradually. Thomas and I would never be close friends, but he had begun to see beyond the narrow confines of formal education and wealth as the only measures of success. Elaine invited me to their home several times, making genuine efforts to find common ground. I completed my GED program 2 months after the wedding, with Michael and Sophie cheering me on at the ceremony. With my new job's tuition assistance program, I even enrolled in community college courses in automotive engineering, something I had always wanted to pursue but never had the opportunity. The most significant news came when Michael and Sophie announced they were expecting their first child. The prospect of becoming a grandfather filled me with a joy I had not felt since Michael was born. During their announcement dinner, I noticed Thomas watching me with new understanding as we both absorbed the news that would connect our families forever. That night, driving home from their house, I reflected on how quickly life can change. One moment of terrible humiliation had transformed into an opportunity for growth, not just for me, but for everyone involved. The Nameplate incident, painful as it was, had forced a necessary confrontation that cleared the air and allowed for new beginnings. I realized that throughout my life, my greatest education had come not from books or classrooms, but from experiences. Raising Michael taught me patience and sacrifice. Working multiple jobs taught me perseverance. Facing judgment taught me the value of quiet dignity. The truth is, those who judge others most harshly are often the ones who need compassion the most. Thomas Harrison's need to feel superior came from his own insecurities, his fear that without his credentials and wealth, he might not be worthy of respect. In that way, perhaps we were not so different after all, each of us trying to prove our worth in the ways available to us. As I parked outside my apartment building, I thought about how being Michael's father had taught me more than any classroom ever could. The diploma I received from life's hardest lessons would never hang on a wall, but its value was beyond measure. Have you ever been judged unfairly based on your background or education? How did you respond to it? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming judgment and finding dignity in difficult situations. Thank you for listening, and remember, true education comes from how we live our lives, not just the degrees we earn. Stay strong, and I will see you in the next video.